Well, good afternoon, everyone. I think today I'm going to write something a little bit more upbeat. If I can get this mic sorted out, 2 seconds. That should probably be a winner. Okay, cool. So I've taken what I was working on yesterday, I've saved that under something else. I've kept just this weird organ part, which I might have a use for later, but at the moment it's very much muted out. I've moved up the bass a few notes and sped the whole thing up, and we're going to write some more upbeat trance, I think. See what we can get going. So the first thing I want to do is put in some percussion, and I'm going to use, hopefully if I can find one, I haven't looked yet, but I'm going to try and use something rather than a snare, which is what the snare sound, the offbeat snare sound I want to start with. I'm not actually going to use an offbeat snare sound. I'm going to use a clap. And specifically, if I can find one, I want a finger snap. Which can be difficult to find. We'll just keep on going through. There'll be something in here somewhere. Snap. Maybe I have to layer it up. These all seem quite sort of tame. I think that's the nearest. So let's lay that up with a clap. That'll do. And I want both of these to trigger on the same thing. So key range is down here. I'm just going to make that C1. C1. That should all trigger on the same stuff now. And that's just a case of getting the EQ and the volume right. So rather than just have a finger clap, and the finger click sounded pretty lame. That's got a bit more vibe to it. And obviously I want that on the second and the fourth beat of every single bar. Quickly lay that in. Ooh, what did I do? I got it, yeah. Not all of them. I'll grab that. Move that up. And I'm only going to use all these sounds, if that makes sense. So I'm going to jump straight onto the master section and compress them quite heavily. A bit of saturation as well, I think. And I'm going to play with the settings on this clap. I want a volume envelope. That's really percussive now. Maybe too percussive. We'll get some EQ in there. Oh yeah, it's clipping the channel. I want to take out the bottom end of this. Look at that, loads of bottom ends. And I hardly need any of that. Something like that. So I'm going to call that offbeat click. And that's filling sort of exactly the same space as I would normally use a snare, but it allows me to keep my snare, like a snare sound for other things. And the advantage of that is that I can use I can go a bit old school with my snare and do snare fills and things like that, which I love doing. I think that's all good fun. I'm going to put that there so my drums and bass are kind of in, roughly speaking, the same place. Next I'm going to put in a closed hi-hat. Again, I'm going to use a separate battery for this. It's just I could absolutely use one battery for all of this and have multiple outputs, and in some ways that'd be easier to program, but I actually find it slightly easier to work with this way. It's not a big deal, however it works for you. For closed hats, I tend to go for 808 closed hats, the classic. I'm feeling that one today. And if you want to get some movement into your hats rather than just have a sort of repetitive thing, then I suggest you go for random bipolar and you assign that to tune. And you really don't want very much of that at all. So layer in your hi-hat pattern, and this is going to be extremely simple. I essentially want every 16th. There's probably a quick way of doing this, but I'm too stupid, so we're just going to layer this in extremely quickly. I'm not going to bother with any kind of velocity or anything like that, just slap them down. Get the volume about right. I reckon that could use a little bit more tail actually. Out there. That's better. And that can definitely come down in volume. Let's tighten them up. So I'm going to go for a little bit of this. If you do too much, then it's clearly too much. But a little bit's adding a nice little bit of volume. I'll just check I'm streaming correctly. Yeah, that looks good. Been having some trouble getting volumes correct sometimes, so I just made sure that that was okay. Okay, so yeah, I'll control the volume of this, make sure the volume envelope's right, and I'm going to bring that right down to about there. Also, I think the modulation is still a touch much. Probably about there. Jump around to the master, bit of saturation. Probably something like that. I'm not in love with the compressor for that sound. That's already hopping, so that'll do it on the hi-hat sound. Again, so call that, I will call that, if I can select all of it, I'll call it closed hat. Perfect. Check I'm still streaming correctly, haven't hit any hotkeys. Sorry, I'm paranoid about this now. If I had a separate computer, then things would be a lot easier, hey? But I don't. Now I'm going to set up a open hat. So this is like kind of standard. This is my standard thing. I should really set up a macro. And I want a kind of sort of there we go, classic 909. You really can't go wrong with that for an open hi-hat. We'll slap that in. On the offbeat. That's actually got quite a lot of bottom end, which I don't want, to my surprise. I put that EQ in on the wrong channel. Remove. There we go. There's a kind of a resonant frequency I think I can hear, but maybe I'm fooling myself. Kind of there. There. That's a bit better. That's better. And now I'll set the volume of that correctly. Sorry about that. That's good. I've activated that thing again. Okay, cool. I'll call that open hat. I'm not happy with the click. I want that click to be much clearer. I kind of think that this clap is too loud. And this needs to be much more kind of nasty. I'm gonna try and tidy this up a little bit. This is quite a tricky one to get the sound I want out of it. I will get there though. Check the volume on that. And I'm going to try a limiter. I need a lot more volume out of it. Not exactly what I was hoping for. So something in this click is using loads of headroom, and I'm struggling to identify it. Put in some of this again. Getting there. I'm still not that happy with that. But I'm going to write some, I'm going to get into some tunes. So, okay, so obviously I don't want to start a tune with... That's kind of a more developed section. So for the moment, I'm going to definitely push off this open hi-hat. I don't need that in here at the moment at all. Let's jump that out to 97. I may well want the closed hat. And I'm definitely going to want the offbeat click. That could be a beginning section. And first thing I want is some acid. Now I don't have a 303 simulator directly per se, but I do have this thing that came with Studio One, which is called Mojito, and this is sort of a 303 simulator. The real question for me is how it responds to velocity, and it does. So I'm kind of okay with that. In the filter too, that's cool. And I'm not going to be programming anything particularly wild. This is going to be a kind of background acid noise, which I'm going to distort quite heavily. But it's not ever going to be the major focus. And we're in G now, rather than D. Shut that down, and I tend to write sort of little 2-bar patterns. Sometimes I make them one, sometimes I make them two. I'm going to do ghost copies of this, so any changes I make on one will be recognised across all of them, and I'll probably separate them back out later. And let me just check, that sounds slightly uneven to me, which means I may have clicked something incorrectly in here. That's all fine. That's all good. I don't want very much release, because that's only going to confuse issues. And very annoyingly, it doesn't tell me how that's actually responding. Okay. Up there in the top left hand corner of the actual door, it tells me the percentage. That could be improved a little bit. To be honest, that's not the easiest knob you've ever made to use. And I'll get rid of that percentage as well on the velocity, if I can. God damn. Okay, cool. And really, I'd like a separate. I'd really like a separate envelope for the filter, but beggars can't be choosers, and this is what we got. Up the resonance, and I think we're going from about there. Okay, let's get some distortion on that. And distortion is what Guitar Rig was made for, basically. I'm going to want some of that. That's probably too aggressive. Finding the right distortion could take a little bit of time. This is rectified distortion. This could be it. I think this could be the one. Yeah. And the only thing I want to do to that, well, there's quite a lot else I want to do to it, is punch that across 2 bars. I just want a 1 bar pattern. Now, obviously, there's a slight problem with EQ here. So let's fix that straight away. There we go. That's the sort of thing I'm talking about. And there's a difficulty because low down I like about 50% resonance. But high up I like about 75% resonance. So I'm going to also have to automate that. So I'm going to jump into here and we're going to put in some automation. I'm pretty happy with that. And obviously I want the filter cutoff and I want the filter resonance. So that's both of them added. Ooh. The filter cutoff was about there. I know where it went to is about there. So from about there to about midway. About there. And let's try automating the resonance as well. That went from 75% to 50. Perfect. Let's have a listen. Now remember, this is a background part. Ooh. I like it. Okay, so that's my automation sorted. The next thing I want to do is play with the velocity. That's not doing as much as I was hoping it would. So all of that needs to come down because that clearly isn't working as well now. Show hide automation. I should have sorted this out beforehand. I'm just going to move that down. I can't go that much further down, which is a problem. I wonder if there's a way of getting around that. Let's have a swig of coffee. I'm going to try and put some of this in to try and make some rhythmic interest. It's a bit too low. That's starting to sound good. What I'm noticing though, I want a reverb which pushes it back into the mix nicely, but what's happening is that this huge tail reverb I've got is muddying it up badly. So I need to watch it with that, because it's definitely a lot. So I'm going to put in another reverb channel for this rough mix which I'm doing. Add FX channel. I'm going to stick in a Guitar Rig 5. Again, I'm going to go for a reflector, and this time I'm going to go for a studio verb. So I want a small studio space, and probably something like that is going to be ideal. I don't want any dry signal, I want that all wet. I'll call FX1, I'm now going to call that long. Long verb, and I'll call FX2 short verb. Just check I didn't knock out the stream. Everything looks like it's working, that's good. Jump back onto my 303 channel, and on the send I'll open up a short verb. And that's a much friendlier reverb signal. And I can seek that further back in the mix. On this channel, I want to make sure I'm not getting any bass through. That sounds quite bassy. Yeah, I don't need signal like that mudding up the bottom end of my mix. That's good. I'm going to try putting in this offbeat click into the drum, this short verb as well. Let's try a few different impulses. I like that one. Excellent. Right. So I've got my background acid lead. And at the moment that's 32 bars. What can be really nice to do with this sort of thing is extend it out over 64 bars. Because it's just a background lead with this sort of rising energy constantly going on, and you think you're getting to the end of it, but actually keeps on going, and you bring in a new section of the tune and the acid line keeps on going up. So it's like, I really enjoy doing that. So I'm going to double that out. That might be a nice point for my hi-hat to come in. So I'm sort of thinking about structure, although none of it's sort of really fixed. I'll turn off snap to grid, that's not good. That's still muted, so it doesn't matter, that organ part. I'll just move that out of the way so I'm not confused about what's going on. I need to look at the automation again because that will now be wrong. Show hide automation, it's going to be wrong on both channels. I'll get rid of the automation point there and it'll be correct on the cutoff. And on the resonance, I'll get rid of, again, all of that, and that should now be fine. So now the open hi-hat will come in. A bit more delay on there. Yeah, that's the kind of vibe I'm after today. Really old school, borderline hard trancey, hard housey, but we can still make that psychedelic, that's not a problem. Excellent. Let's try and get in a more traditional sort of a hypersaw lead sound. We can make this really rude. I'm going to go for a digital Oscar because this has got this shape here, which is my detune saw lead. Let's have a think about how I'm going to write this. I'm going to leave the beat soft for 1 second and work on a pattern. About there. I'm going to leave it at that for now. Oh, jumping around the track. So I'm trying to leave myself, I'm trying to make an identifiable hook, but at the same time I don't want to write so much that I'm locking myself in to a complete melody idea, so I can develop on this idea. This is borderline too much. And I'm also trying to leave space, which is why I'm trying to leave the, well, I was talking about 1-bar patterns and 2-bar patterns. With the 2-bar pattern, I tend to try and leave a bit of space in the melody. Something like that. I'm not convinced, but let's work on the patch. So I'm going to loop this 2-bar patterns. This can get repetitive on your sense of what it should and should not be. And I have to, really. And we're also going to get a flanger on that. It's a little fast. Let's work on the envelopes. And we're just going to keep on messing about. Until we get the sort of thing we're after. Let's try an NFO sounds. In my head, this is a slower modulation sound. And I think it wants a lot of delay. Starting to get there. I'm not sure about that delay. I think it might be a job for the regular old analog delay. And it might be easier to get the filter sound after in a separate program. So let's just open that. Okay, so into guitar rig we go. Let's get a amp on that. And a Van 51. Getting there. Let's try and get some filter action going on. Turn it down a bit. I'll delete the stuff I'm not using, it's just in the way. Uses up RAM. And what might be nice is if the phaser was after the distortion. So I'll put that in there. Yeah, I think that's going to work better. So I'll take it off in Diva. In fact, I think that's going to help altogether. Yeah. Yeah, there's a lot of bass in that sound, but I'm happier with what it's doing. And let's get a filter in on that. Couple of LFOs. Standard trick, I'm going to assign LFO to another LFO to make a more interesting random LFO. It doesn't need very much at all though, that kind of level of weirdness. And I want a random shape here. So now what I have is a randomly modulating triangle wave. You see the speed of this is now quite strange. And then from there I go into the cutoff of this filter. I don't really want more than sort of 25%. And let's try splitting that. I'll hide these away. And then I'd also like a pan on that. So I'm going to put in another split. I'm going to wheel it off all over the way to one side. And then do exactly the same thing with the LFOs again. I'm going to make a random pattern in one LFO. Attach it onto the rate of another LFO. In this case I'm going to make it a sine wave. And then I'm going to attach that to the pan. About there. And that's obviously going completely mental because there's too much modulation here. Maybe a little bit more. Cool. How's that sound with some stuff? Too much bass. So I'll cut out some of this bass. And I don't like the notes particularly, which is a problem. That's hard and nasty. So I'm going to leave that little lead pattern around while I'm thinking about it, and I'm going to put in some stab notes in here. It's just some sort of house chords really. I think There will be good. I'll make a second bar. And this time I'll put them on a different beat. That's too obvious. Maybe there. Not there. And we'll work on the patch in a second. Yeah, I can work with that. I'll hopefully be able to improve it a bit. So I'll spread that out. I'll work on this patch. This synth comes with some really nice waveforms in it. One of my favourite ones is the K Plus strong waveforms that comes with down here. Which are great for making really strong sounding lead patches. So let's make that fit in the mixer now. Bit of the reverb to start with. I think I can still make that patch better though. Just work on the patch for a second, rather than listen to the mix, tempting as it is. That's why the kick clip was fat. I had the metronome on. Getting there. Let's drop that down an octave. I think maybe it sounds a bit high. That's got a kind of old school house shift to it. The other thing I could do, I'll make sure these are on 0 and 0 and 0. and I can try and put in a bit of FM on probably oscillator 2. I'll drop that down into triangle mode. I'll drop it down an octave, and now I'm going to use oscillator 3 to modulate the FM. I'm going to set these to static phases. This is still free, so I still sound fairly random. Not doing it for me. Don't know about you. If I take that out, that might help. Oscillator 3 is actually getting into the mix, which I didn't like. Okay. Let's try that. Not happy. Not getting there. How's it sounding there? It's nearly right, but it's just not quite working. That works. Okay, next I'm going to put in a snare and I'm going to work on some fills. Having a mind blank. There we go, battery, of course. So you can see I'm not really sort of pausing for breath. If I get stuck on something, I don't get bogged down in it. And that's really important. If you are struggling, probably the worst thing you can do is to spend a long period of time trying to tweak something so that it works. You're much better off just moving on and coming back to it later. If you're struggling, you just burn your creativity out in seconds if you try and sort out problematic areas in the mix. It just won't work. So snare, I want probably an analog. Rim shots? No, I don't want rim shots. Just give me a 909 snare, something like that. That'll do. Obviously there's a lot of bass resonance in that which needs to come out. We're just after really the noise burst on it. And we're going to go old school on this. I'm feeling old school today. I'm feeling old school every day, but really old school today. I'm looking at mucky mixes and cheesy fills. Not what I meant to do. There we go. I'll jump that up and we're going to draw a line across our velocity because this is going to be a really classic snare fill. Oh, that's nice. Forgot about that. All the way down. I need to obviously set up velocity to volume for this to work. Editor, modulation, velocity, and that will go to volume all the way. Nice. So 48. And that's perfect. I just need to cut out the bass on that part. Get the right filter. I can be quite aggressive with this filter. And now finally mix the volume correctly. And I want that through the short verb. Let's have a little kick fill there. Ooh. And a little bass section as well. I'm going to turn on the volume envelope for the snare. If I get rid of some of the release, then it will give it more dynamic impact because there'll be more space in between it hits. That's a little too much. I'm going to go to about double that. Still a little more. Try that again without the volume. And now with once again. I think that's better. Not quite, hey. That's better. That's almost like noisy, yeah. I'm happy with that. That's better. Now let's go back to this. It's not hard enough or nasty enough. Okay. I'll get some more feels. I'm thinking about how to deal with that. And that's, this point here is going to be a major break in the tune. But we're sort of changing sections. So I'm going to make this a bigger fill here. I'll merge these two together. I'll select all of these, and this time I'm just going to do a big old snare fill. Cheesy cheese cheese. Gotta love a big old snare fill. I'm also going to put in a little synth bit on this, so I'm going to jump in and do a Largo patch. And I'm going to use the mod wheel on this, edit program, grab some crazy waveform, jump over to common, that'll be fine probably. And over these two bars I'm going to do a single note. And in the matrix I'm going to set the mod wheel to control pitch. Now back in the MIDI I'll come down to modulation. Oh, not quite what I had in mind. And we'll get that going and see what happens. That's obviously a lot. The modulation matrix in Largo, it kind of the value sort of do that. So as you increase the slider, it doesn't sort of go up in a nice gradual movement, it goes way the hell up, all the modulation. I wish it was a little bit more linear. It's quite hard to predict how the thing's going to behave. So you see I've gone up maybe 5 semitones and I'm halfway down the slider, where all the way across the slider I'm going up like at least 4 octaves, maybe more. It could be a little easier to use. You see? Barely changing the slider. That kind of thing. I'm also going to use that to control a cut-off of a high-pass filter, just to control the sound a bit. I shouldn't have moved that. That was a bad idea. Works kind of well. Modulation. And that's going to go on to Filter 2 cutoff. About the same. Don't know. We'll see what happens. Serial routing we definitely want. I'll turn the resonance up so I can hear the effect that I'm having on Filter 2 cutoff. Not bad. Obviously the resonance is sky high, but that's just for diagnostic purposes. Glad you're enjoying it. Something else entirely? And obviously that's got to be way at the back of the mix. It's almost like a subconscious little riser. So that's going into the long verb. Quite a lot of long verb, because it's a long way off. Not that we're really simulating that properly using reverb like that. But for now, just for the sake of getting the mix right, I'll chuck that into a 1/4 delay. That'll be about fine. Probably take out some of the top ends and definitely some of the bottom ends. With my Pro EQ, I'm going to put in a guard EQ, set it up about there. And finally I'm going to put in a drum fill. Okay, so I'll set the velocity on these. I mean, this is really old school now. Just sort of blatant, cheesy drum fills, but I've got no problem with that at all. Oopsie. I mean, really, what's not to like? That's pretty much perfect. There we go. And it wants a crash, clearly, because you just would, wouldn't you? So, and I can use some of these little nice bits and pieces I've got here later on. But for now, I just want the stuff it came with. It's very stereo. I'll turn the volume down a bit. That's better. Okay, so I want scroll all the way down that just to be safe. Drag that in. Let's have a little listen. Time stretch, I don't want any time stretch. Bad sequencer. That's going to be super loud. Save all our ears. Something else entirely. In terms of choosing your sequencer, both are great sequencers, FL Studio and Studio One. They're both extremely powerful. It depends how much you need. Say maybe inbuilt synths and things like that. I'd say FL Studio has a much more complete set of tools if you need synths, or particularly. Studio One, I think, is slightly, for me, my way of working. I prefer Studio One. I like the automation. I've never been into the whole step sequencer thing. This works for me, but yeah, as you say, you already own both. If you already own both, then I would definitely be looking at the situation that you're trying to mix in. Tell me I dropped a couple of frames. Hope it's still there. Oh well, we'll soon find out. If not, we'll all have to catch up on the If not, we'll all have to catch up on the YouTube playback. Good old Switch. That crash is a bit quiet, isn't it? Let's boost that back up. So the crash needs a long verb on it, and it needs a bit of EQ. Bit more. It's kind of a background crash. It's more of a like a we're signalling what's happened here. That we've gone into a new section. It's almost a subconscious thing, and everyone knows what a crash means. It's okay, more than that. That's a little bit too much, but not way too much. And I also need to drop the volume off a bit. And that has a really strange stereo signal, so I'm going to get out a binaural pan and fix that to some degree. I need 203 frames drops. God damn it. Something needs to happen there. The acid line doesn't feel like it's moving enough. Maybe that could come in. You prefer S1's instruments, the inbuilt instruments? I think they're pretty good. The drum sampler I really like. Where are they? Impact is great. I really like that. I'm not convinced about sample 1 or presence. Mojito's fine. Mai Tai's really good. Some of the effects are excellent. There's a bug in analog delay, or at least there is on my system, which is causing me some issues. A lot of the other effects are not complicated, but are extremely effective. Pro EQ is pretty good. Not in every situation. I've got reverbs that do sound better in certain situations, but not reverbs. EQs that do sound better in certain situations. Some of the newer EQs I've had good results out of, like the complicated channels, the RC500, that sort of stuff. I've had great results out of that. Okay, I'm going to take a break. I need to come up with some ideas for leads. This idea is not working. It is weak, so I'm not gonna keep on with that. I'm gonna figure out some way of making that a lot stronger. Probably layering. I can get away with some different synth parts, but I'm really happy with the acid line I put in. The structure's taking shape. I like my little fill here. This is all good fun. And it's got that kind of old school hard trancey vibe I was looking for. That's a little bit too hard trance. I need to come up with some side trance equivalent to that, but it's getting there. So it's all good fun. I'll take a break. Yeah, rewire with reason into SO1. Yeah, that's very nice. I've used rewire with S1. It does work well. Not with reason, but with other stuff. I would definitely strongly recommend that. But I can't even begin to get near. You wouldn't believe what I have to do audio wise to make all this work anyway. I can't do rewire on top of it. My mind will just... Excellent. I'll catch you on a bit. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. Take it easy. Peace out.